Good morning. Well, the story is told in Zanzibar about a young man who left his village one day to go down and go hunting. No sooner had he departed when a herd of elephants got spooked and they trampled his small village, leaving the hunter's home flattened and his possessions destroyed. Arriving home, the young hunter discovered the disaster and he went to the village elder to lament. "Why did this happen to me?" he said. "Most of my possessions have been damaged or destroyed. How can I seek my revenge?" "Ah, this is not a surprising response," said the wise elder. "Asking why, seeking someone to blame, taking revenge are common reactions to something like this. But they're not helpful. The wisest advice will not be lamenting what's gone, but contemplating what remains." Then he gave the young hunter some homework. "There's a proverb handed down from our elders," he said, "and I want you to go off and I want you to think about this. It goes like this. Do not blame God for having created tigers, but thank God for not giving them wings." Gratitude. Gratitude in the face of a challenge. This is what can make things better. This is not just wisdom from the ages. This is a story from Zanzibar, but you can go to a lot of different cultures, a lot of different ages, and find stories like this. But we need to look in the modern era no further than the work of social science. For example, social scientists Robert Emmons from the University of California and Mike McCullough from the University of Miami. They recently outlined in the Atlantic magazine work that's been repeatedly replicated. And in this case, these researchers took three groups of people. They gave them all diaries. And to the first group, they said, every day at the end of the day, I want you to write down things that you really appreciated, things that you're grateful for. I want you to think of those things, and I want you to write those down. And for the second group, he said, I want you to think about the day and write down the things that really irritated you. All that stuff that bugged you. I want you to write all that stuff down and give me great detail. The third group, he said, here are your diaries. I want you just to record the day's events as they unfurled. Well, 10 weeks went by, and the researchers checked in, and they were greeted with dramatic results. The first group, these grateful people, these people who took time to call to mind and then put into print those good things that happened to them. This first group of people, they found that this first group reported less frequent and less severe aches and pains. They slept better. They reported greater happiness, greater alertness. They described themselves as more outgoing and more compassionate. They also reported being less likely to be lonely or discouraged. No similar changes were observed in the second or third group. I don't think a lot of us are surprised by this. Gratitude, it can heal us. A book called Slow Church recently made these observations about the culture we're in and the crucial effect that gratitude can have on it. As we all know, we live in a consumerist culture. And this culture is one that encourages forgetfulness. We buy things, we forget how satisfying they were. Hey, when I want to have a good day, I go up in the attic and I start opening boxes. I didn't know I owned this. Wow, this is really cool. I remember having fun with this. We buy things and we forget how satisfying they were. In fact, dissatisfaction is at the root of our modern economy. We have to be unhappy with what we have or we'll never go out and buy a replacement. We have to be unhappy with what we have or we'll never go out and buy a replacement. And we're so immersed in the consumer culture that it's easy to assume that things have always been this way. It's always been like this. But that's not really the case. The BBC just produced a documentary not too long ago detailing how, over the last century, about the last 90 years, the principles of Freudian psychology have been used by corporations and politicians to subtly control this restive population of ours. This documentary takes us back to World War I. Corporations had grown rich and powerful, churning out material and mass-produced goods. They were growing concerned about overproduction. They were worried once the war is over, Americans will not be satisfied with what they already have. Anybody ever buy an old house and you see how small the closet is? Why is this closet so small? They didn't have my wardrobe, right? You know? And if people stopped buying things, the factories would go quiet and the boom years would be over. A prominent banker today put it this way. His name was Paul Mazur. And he said this, quote, "We must shift America from a needs to a desires culture. People must be trained to desire to want new things, even before the old ones have worn out or been entirely consumed. Man's desires must overshadow his needs." Onto the scene came a man, you may have heard of him, named Edward Bernays, and he was one of Woodrow Wilson's public information advisors who had successfully handled the public face of the government during World War I. And Bernays now aimed at applying these same skills to big business. Now, because the word propaganda had negative connotations, still does, Bernays was the man, and if you leave church this morning wondering, did I learn anything? Remember the name Paul Bernays, Edward Bernays, because he invented the term public relations. Okay, it's not that old, in the last 100 years. Bernays, who also happened to be Sigmund Freud's cousin, bought into his famous relative's conviction that our behavior is more driven by irrational forces and instincts than rational intellect. You ever notice that? That our desires are more driven by irrational forces and instinct than rational intellect. I like my friend who sells houses. He'll sit you down and say, "Manju, what do you want in your house?" Manju said, "I want a pool, I want this one, just write 10 things." And then Manju will call him up and say, "I found the perfect house." "Really?" And Manju will show him a house that has none of those 10 things on it. Right? Look at the list you made of your perfect mate, right? How many things aren't on does he or she not possess that you had on your list? Right? So we are constantly dominated by irrational forces and instinct versus rational intellect. Now, we like to think that we are driven by rational intellect, but that's mostly not the case. So Bernays sought to manufacture discontent, right? Because you need discontent in order to buy stuff. He sought to manufacture this, to sell people things they really didn't need, and connect consumption of certain products to, as Freud would put it, the search for the self. And so Bernays was the one who convinced car companies that you could sell your vehicle as a symbol of male sexuality. He's the one who helped American tobacco break the taboo against women smoking by renaming cigarettes torches of freedom and staging a rally of wealthy debutantes to smoke during New York's annual Easter parade. And so Life magazine would name Bernays as one of the most influential Americans of the 20th century for his part in shaping a culture that is now driven by perpetual dissatisfaction. That tells us we won't be complete until we have the shiniest toy, the latest gadget, the most exclusive membership, smoother skin, bouncier hair. This dissatisfaction is the root of a staggering amount of illness and injustice. The idea that somehow we don't have access to everything we need or deserve, it leads to distrust. It leads to broken relationships, to ruthless competition, war, hunger, poverty, and gross economic inequality. This dissatisfaction. Now, we're all familiar with the data that shows that the United States is the richest, most powerful country that's ever lived. But we're also the most medicated, stressed out, and self-harming among many nations. And you and I, as Christians, we ask, what is the solution to a culture that's hooked on dissatisfaction? The answer is right in our Bibles. Gratitude. Gratitude, that's the answer. That's why we sing hymns of praise. That's why we pray prayers of thanksgiving. We listen to Bible stories like the ones we just heard that teaches us that gratitude can't just heal us, but it can save us. I like to ask that question to people. What's saving you right now? What is saving you right now? Because one of the things that's saving you right now is gratitude. Being thankful for what I have. Not for what I'm going to get. I'm sure I'm going to get something someday. But what is it that you already have? In our gospel reading, it's on page 8 of your bulletins. Turn to it. I don't know how often ask you to do this, but page 8 of your bulletins, because I used a new translation. This particular translation of this famous story, the 10 lepers, tells us that Jesus was walking through this region between Samaria and Galilee. He came upon these 10 lepers and asked to be healed. Jesus asked him to go and see the high priest. And like the story of Naaman in our first reading of the book of Kings, all of them were healed of leprosy. And when the one Samaritan turned back to Jesus, we notice the terminology used here. The text says that while all 9 were healed and made clean, in that last verse on your bulletin there, that last verse tells the one person who bothered to come back and say thanks that his faith was both, your faith has both healed and saved you. Your faith has healed and saved you. The other 9 were healed and cleaned. But in this case, the gratitude saved him. The connotation here is that the act of gratitude returned this person to God. It saved him. Saying thanks, it's at the core of who we are. We were not created to be takers, my friends. That's not who we are at our best. But we're givers who are at our best when we give thanks, certainly to God, but to everything around us that's deserving of our praise. Can you take a moment and think about somebody you need to say thanks to? Maybe they need a text, maybe they need an email. Something that happened in your week. Gosh, you know what? I'm really so thankful for that. I was walking the baby the other day, just yesterday actually, and we had one of those, in our neighborhood, we have those boxes where you have to put your key in and then open it. And it's a good way to run into all the other neighbors, right? It's not in front of your house, it's just with everybody else. And our key had been broken for like 2 weeks. So we had to text the post person, would you come to our house and deliver this kind of thing? And it got fixed. And I was so thankful that I could now open my doggone mailbox, right? The things we take for granted, right? I think this story invites us to be thankful for these things and to live in that gratitude. Why? Because it can save us. Gratitude is planted deep within us and has the answers to more of our problems than we probably suspect. Now, one of the biggest challenges many of us face as parents and grandparents is raising successful children. I know that's the number one goal for many of us here. And one significant attribute to success, researchers will tell us this, is the ability to delay gratification. Right? We all know the famous marshmallow study when they gave 10 kids marshmallows and said, I'll give you 1 marshmallow now, or I'll give you 3 if you can wait a minute. And the number of kids who could wait a minute, they charted their lives and they were successful at a lot more successful than the people who couldn't. So we parents, we want to teach this to our young ones. Studies tell us conclusively that those who are better at delaying gratification will get farther in life, in college, and in their vocations. And a researcher named David DeStano recently ran this experiment, and he took 2 groups of people. The first group, he asked them for a few minutes, I want you to think of something you're really grateful for. I want you to look through your life, and I want you to spend just a few minutes thinking about things you're grateful for. He took another group of people, he didn't tell them anything. Then he asked them this question. He said, I'll give you a certain amount of money today, or I'll give you $100 a year from now. And he found that those who were grateful held out nearly twice as long as those who were not put into a similar mindset. The grateful people wouldn't take anything less than $30 today. The people who weren't asked to be grateful, they settled for about half that, $15, $18. Research will show us that can help us delay gratification. Gratefulness. What else does gratefulness do? It shows us that when we make people feel grateful, they'll spend more time helping people who ask for help. I've got a little essay at the beginning of your bulletin there that talks about that. When we make people feel grateful, they'll make financial decisions that benefit partners equally, rather than the ones that allow profit at a partner's expense. And when we make people feel grateful, they'll show loyalty to those who have helped them, even at cost to themselves. How can we feel more grateful? And I mean, we all swim in the same water. This is a society that spins and spins and spins. And I often wonder, why don't I spend more time saying things or reflecting on things? I have a story of a good friend of mine. I've told it for you before, but I think it's been years. You might forget that. But one of my great friends, Jane, she used to be married to the guy, Albert Sabin, who's the doctor who put the polio medicine on the sugar cube, right? You remember as a kid, some of you had the sugar cube, polio. And so he was being fed it, this must have been the 50s or 60s or something. And he was flying all around the world, and Jane was married to him, and they were down in South America. And the press was gathered all around, and they were in their hotel suite, top of the hotel, ritziest hotel in Buenos Aires. And the press was interviewing Dr. Sabin and asking him all about his work behind polio vaccine. And then all of a sudden, Jane sitting across the room. Jane was asked by a reporter who turned to her and said, Jane, Mrs. Sabin, how are you enjoying Buenos Aires? And all the reporters turned to her, and her husband turned to her, and the spotlight was on her, and she knew, because she just got married to the guy, she knew this was going to be a mark of, is she the right wife? Is she right for me? And so she looked at that reporter, and she was from the South, and she took a moment of pause and said, well, I'm enjoying Buenos Aires in 3 ways: the anticipation, the experience, and the reflection. And friends, I think with much of the time when we go through life, we're on the anticipation, we're on the experience, but how quickly we forget the reflection. I mean, we look forward to Thanksgiving, we cook for a week for Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving comes, and what do we think of Christmas? Yeah. Right? I mean, we don't give time for that reflection. So I'm going to pause after we sit down after the sermon for a second to give you a moment to reflect on God's goodness to you this week. To reflect on the fact that this act of appreciation for what we've been given, this act of gratitude will save us. Living in gratitude will give you better health, a better mindset, you'll be more generous than others. So my brothers and sisters, may God grant each of us grateful hearts, thankful spirits, and renewed ambition to make gratitude a foundation of our faith. Amen.